I read an article earlier today talking about insourcing and outsourcing. Before I go into my thoughts, let's just confirm the definitions. Outsourcing is when a company hires an external third party, like a PR firm or an IT solutions business, to complete a task or project or take over a continuous function for the company. Insourcing, on the other hand, is when the company's tasks and projects and continuous processes are all handled internally, even if you're hiring new people or creating new departments is the only solution. The question that follows is, which is better for a business? Outsourcing or insourcing? Before I give you my answer, let's cover the pros and cons of both with some use cases. In case you want to skip all of this to my answer, you're welcome to use the timestamp below. The reasons why businesses may choose outsourcing assistance over insourcing tend to be based on factors such as cutting out the costs associated with hiring new employees, workload reduction for internal teams to prevent burnout, enabling employees to concentrate on core business functions while external parties take care of less critical duties, having new needs in the business and there isn't an internal team who have the skill set to manage it yet. Saying that, the challenges that come with outsourcing include the risk of external parties controlling and dealing with sensitive data. Communication is a challenge with external parties. It tends to have to go through one or two selected people on a team, which can sometimes create an inadvertent bottleneck. You need to be explicit in explaining brand points, and costs can spiral if the project unknowingly expands. Examples of the most common cases for outsourcing that I have used are payroll, marketing functions such as design, image or video capture, IT support, and HR contracts management. When it comes to insourcing, the idea is you spend the investment internally and expand your management remit to cover this new business. The reason why a business would choose this option over outsourcing is when it's more important to have control over the decisions that go into the task and projects. Existing employees are already familiar with brand messaging and brand experience and won't need to spend additional resources on training them. Communication to external third parties will be too tricky to manage, and the risk of sensitive data being mishandled is something you're not prepared to take on. Now, before you rush to insource, please know the challenges you might face. Insourcing can also become costly if it requires hiring new talent or creating new departments to be responsible for specific tasks and projects. Existing employees can also become burnt out if they're assigned a heavier workload to accomplish these projects. Changing a course of action is harder when considerable steps have to be taken to prepare for change internally, so you'd better be certain this is what you want to do. Examples of when insourcing is a good option include when a company is expanding into new markets, but its marketing team is unfamiliar with the language in the new area maybe, and so in order to meet the needs of the new market, the company hires a new team in that territory that speaks the language and will create relevant marketing strategies to address the needs in that area. Another example is when a business wants to expand its line of products. It can work with internal product teams to brainstorm new ideas and bring them to fruition instead of outsourcing the work to an external unit. Another example would be after scaling, the business hires new talent experienced in payroll duties and creates an in-house payroll department since it can get too expensive to pay for this externally for a large company. Now let's look at all of this from the lens of a small business. I'll give you my thesis up front. I choose outsourcing before I choose insourcing. I'd say 85 to 90% of the time. In my early years in business, I was perhaps a bit green. I had a very naive image of what business building was. I understood it to be all about having a bustling office with phones ringing off the hook and people hard at work trying to capture every lead that came into the business with shorter and shorter lag times between the moment the customer first contacted us to when we delivered our quotes. Every time I hired a new team member, I thought they were the one to unlock the next level of the business. Truth is, as I indulged in this insourcing heavy approach, I got more and more absorbed into just trying to manage them all. Figuring out rotas, signing in and out, pay rates, commission calculations, conflict resolution, and training. It was all relentless. The thing is, what this meant was that I was absorbed in doing busy work, more day-to-day management work, rather than where my attention was really needed, working on the business. Here comes the crux of it. Until your business has found a solid customer base and you can cover your expenses 2-3 times over, there really is no sense to be using your entrepreneurial might on just managing people. Choose outsourcing over insourcing 8 out of 10 times. I am a strong believer that your startup funds and your initial business revenue should be used to cover the costs of outsourcing services for your business. I like this approach for a few reasons. First, when you are repeatedly using outsourced services, you have to get really good at explaining what you do and need. This is an undervalued skill that we get lazy with when we have an internal team. Being able to define the project and its deliverables is massively empowering later down the line. Next, outsourcing tends to have enough of a saving for the early days, but becomes a cost-saving opportunity for you when the business has grown past a certain point. And then it's more feasible to bring these services in-house. Payroll is a perfect example for this. For a few people, having a payroll manager on the team does not make sense. For a team of 50 or 100, it's a different story. Next, outsourcing services lets you rethink and pivot quickly if something isn't working. Whereas if you have a newly recruited team member, or worse, a designated department in-house, you are held hostage by this decision, and closing the position or the department down just because you may have got it wrong, it's a lot harder and worrying for the remaining team members to observe. Finally, outsourcing lets you hire pros into your business to show you the level you want any future internal recruits to have or exceed. If you hire a team on the books without knowing the difference between a job well done and a poor job, you are in for a rocky ride for sure. Outsourcing is like getting niche consultancy services for each aspect of your business. I use my instructions and work experience with outsourced talents as the basis of my standard operating procedures for those roles, making me feel prepared and confident for when I do want to bring someone in as a permanent member of the team. Saying that, with the trend of more and more people wanting to be self-employed and working on their own terms, we very well may be heading into a space where outsourcing becomes a standard fixture in business. With the development of cloud servers like Dropbox and Google Drive and communication platforms like Slack and Asana, it's now easier than ever to plug a third-party supplier into your business way more seamlessly than ever before. I'm curious to know about what's your experience with outsourcing and insourcing. Until the next one, you've got this. Hi, I'm Priyanka. I feel like we're in a committed relationship. I mean, you have watched the videos to the end. Surely it's enough for you to subscribe now.